Well, folks, starting with the next episode of season 9, we are going to see the postpartum depression set in, not to mention grief of Karen dealing with the loss of one of her babies. And I think we're all thinking the same thing. I mean, we've been discussing this ever since, Karen's water broke at Zach and Fatima's. And it's like, uh-oh, what's going to happen if there's some sort of complication? She better not blame Fatima, and a lot of people feel the same way, and rightfully so. Karen's going to be lashing out at everyone because based off the synopsis and the trailer, she doesn't want to be around people. She doesn't want anybody like smiling in her face or anything like that. She doesn't want anybody. I mean, despite the fact that in the article just detailing next week's episode, the doctors recommend, she get up, walk around and whatnot as she's recovering, but she doesn't even want to do that. She's going to lash out. And the question is, who is going to get the worst of it? Now, we know at some point the girls got to go to work. Like, they bring Karen home from the hospital with Miss Lisa, and it seems like after they leave, it's going to be Pam and Miss Lisa holding down the fort. I believe details state that Aaron is supposed to go check on Zach, and it's just a question of what's next. And even though it might get annoying at some point, we got to realize, folks, this is something that won't get resolved right away. And I'm actually happy because of the fact that it's like, this isn't something that's going to be taken care of in 42 minutes or less. Not to mention, how this show works. Sometimes an entire afternoon is stretched over the course of 5 episodes. Sometimes we have a random time jump in between episodes. But in this situation, given the seriousness of the subject, I don't think we'll resolve the grief thing until maybe the middle or maybe even end of the season. And I'd much rather see a storyline like this stretched out for a bit as opposed to the Who Stabbed Gary thing for an entire season. That much I will say. But when it comes to Karen's rage, there are just so many emotions that are valid. But at the same time, and I said this during my live stream and I hate to say it, but how much of Karen's grief is directed towards losing her baby versus the fact that the baby she lost was the baby that tied her to Zach. And I know that is an awful thing to say, but I remember when, before it was the twins and, the dual baby daddy things, when Karen kept going on about I don't want to have a baby with Aaron because we don't know each other well enough. Yet you open your legs to both men in such a close amount of time that the baby daddy situation is dang near impossible to tell who's the baby daddy. And I remember saying, like, to be completely honest here, Karen is not ready to be a mom, because if she goes through the pregnancy, if she gives birth to that baby, or if she gives birth to the baby, regardless as to who the baby daddy is, that baby will not get true love. Because if the baby is Zach's baby, she will weaponize that baby against Zach and Fatima's relationship. Probably telling that baby, your daddy ain't nothing. He, started another family without us and chose that B instead of me and this, that, and the third. Basically feeling that baby to be as toxic as she is. On the flip side, if the baby was Aaron's baby, she would resent that child because it's not with the man who she wanted to have a baby with. And I said, nah, she's not ready to be a mom because she's just so full of just bitterness and evil right now. And if nothing else, that baby, regardless who the baby daddy is going to be on the receiving end of toxic parenting. Now, given the fact that despite, as Fatima said, her and Karen, essentially Zach, Aaron, Karen, and Fatima just coexisting. You know, there's some animosity there. Like, I mean, it really started after the whole Aaron jumping on Zach's case, assuming he was the reason Karen went off and then had those labor pains and crap. There's just like, yeah, we're trying to manage things, but it's not really all good between us, but whatever. Essentially, any goodwill between Karen and Zach or Karen and Fatima might be displaced. I don't know. Because we're going to see Karen and Zach both dealing with grief. But my question is, when will they have a moment to kind of, you know, grieve together? I'm not trying to ship them together. I'm not saying I hope Karen isn't like, Zach, I need you now more than ever. It's like, no, 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 none of that, none of that. It's just these two being mature and grieving of what could have been through their daughter forever. But I feel like for right now, I do think at some point, and I don't think I'm crazy for saying this. I feel like low key Karen is going to have a mixture of emotions between losing her baby, but most importantly to her, losing that tether to Zach. That's gone now. Aside from, you know, the potential ceremony or funeral to put their baby girl to rest, there was after that, there's really no reason for them to, you know, interact the way they were. Like him checking on her, you know, to make sure their baby's okay and seeing if she needs anything, child support, none of that. And like Lisa says in the next episode preview, Karen's just going to have to get used to her new normal. And all the while, she knows, she's the only one that knows Fatima's pregnant with Zach's child. So I am intrigued yet concerned to see exactly how this grief and anger thing is going to go. Because I think episode 7 is entitled Cutting Ties. So I wonder exactly what that means for the future of some of these characters. So with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.